The last thing I want to do is talk about outlining, because our first assignment for this semester, and the assignment that's due Saturday, is to prepare an outline. So we can take those three things: our introduction, body, and conclusion. And I like to give them Roman numerals to number the sections. In some other genres, you're going to have more than 3 sections for an essay like this. So let's think about it. We talked about dogs earlier. So in our introduction, why should people care about getting a dog?
They're a man's best friend.
They're man's best friend. So we could use something along the lines of man's best friend. We could use the idea of man's best friend as sort of a memorable quote that people already recognize that could draw people in. That would be a technique. I personally don't really like beginning with quotes. I know that a lot of people's high school teachers would have told you to start with quotes, but I think it's generally something you should avoid, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, a common metaphor or phrase like man's best friend would work here. So I like to give them letters for the subtopics. So hook, man's best friend. The thing we're actually going to tell them is what? We decided we're going to tell them why they should get a dog. Is that what we're here to do? You should get a dog. And the reason they should care is why?
Benefits of owning a dog.
Benefits of owning a dog? That's not really, I guess we could phrase that differently. What is the central benefit that we're trying to get across to people?
That you should get a dog because it's cool.
Coolness?
For your protection.
Protection?
36.
Okay. So what you guys are noticing is that when you have a thesis statement like this, you can expand it. You should get a dog because dogs offer companionship. What was another one we said just now?
They're loyal.
Loyal, are very loyal. And what was the third one we said? What was the third one?
For your protection.
Offer, can be protectors. All right, so we've essentially made a stronger thesis statement by expanding it to include some supporting ideas. We're not really trying to write a strong thesis statement for this first essay. It is something you should consider, though, having a clear point. But following this formal style is something we'll practice a little later in the semester. But good for you guys for picking up on that already. The last part, though, is the reason why people should care. So it's good that we have this thesis which has these reasons why we're going to argue this, but it still doesn't make people actually care. Why would I care about owning a dog? Or maybe think about it in terms of what do all these 3 things get me?
Less lonely.
So you might be less lonely. I think that would fall under our companionship. I think that if we're trying to explain this one way we might do it is by saying you might have a happier life. You might be happier if you have these things. So you might be happier. And the way I've written these, they're not quite full sentences. They're not quite what would go in your actual essay. I want you guys to try to write your outlines with full sentences that could hypothetically be in your essay. But if you end up writing main reasons or shorthands like this, that's usually going to be okay. The thesis statement for our next essay and for the third essay, that's when I want to make sure you have a full sentence there. But this is usually good enough for outlining an introduction. All right, so we've already done the hard part for ourselves, actually. We've already explained our body points. We've already explained A, B, C. And those are going to be our corresponding parts here. For each of those points, though, we would want to do something similar. We explain what it is. We're going to discuss it with examples, and then we're going to explain why you should care about it. So you're going to do these 3 things again for each of those sections. You're going to have an introduction to companionship, body paragraph about why companionship matters, and a conclusion about why people should care about companionship. So you're going to do all those three things again. In the conclusion, you are going to be almost restating your ideas. This is one of the harder points to teach, which is what exactly is conclusion? Because it's the part where you're trying to leave people with a lasting image. But what is a lasting image even? The easiest way to make a shorthand for that is basically to recap the essay. But I think you want to go beyond recapping things. I think that you can do a recap as you explain why people should care about the topic, and that is a much better way to do it. So instead of saying, because dogs are good companions, loyal companions, and can be protectors, you should get a dog. Instead, we should say, because dogs are such good companions and possible protectors, your life might be better if you have one. Something like that. I've still done the recap there, but I framed it in terms of why it actually matters to you, and that's the more important part. Okay? For your narratives, things are going to work a little bit differently. In a narrative, instead of having three different ideas that you are exploring like this, where I say they're basically equal, like all three of those ideas are on equal footing. There's no definite reason why one would go before the other. We want our transitions to make sense, and we'll talk about those another time. But there's no actual reason why companionship has to be before loyalty, has to be before protection. Whereas for a narrative, we really do want there to be a single connection that's tying everything together. We're going to talk about baking cookies, all right? So here's why I love cookies. Cookies are important to me. This introduces our topic. We are going to talk about cookies and why they're important to me. That's the first step here. I'm going to number these for us. Introduction, cookies are important to me. Cookies are, I have many memories of cookies. I have many memories of cookies, and I might expand on that, but that's what's going to go in the meat there. And that's telling us what we're going to tell people. We're going to tell them about our memories. So our topic is cookies and why they're important. What we're going to say is, here are the memories of cookies. And then why should you care? For me, my memories of cookies have gotten me through hard times. So that's why you should care. You should care because you might experience hard times, and memories of cookies have gotten me through them. So maybe you can find something that would get you through hard times too. That's a basic introduction for like a narrative. The hard part here is going to be everything else after that, where you are trying to explain body paragraphs. Because one of the hallmarks of a narrative is that it flows with a single connection through everything. I'm going to talk about why I like cookies so much. I might talk about my memories with cookies. And I might talk about the hard times they've gotten me through. Okay, so I know this is a lot and we're going through things pretty quick. But we're basically doing the same three things over and over for this entire thing. But anyway, we're going to go from our introduction and we're going to have a transition statement. That's the important thing for our narrative, is that we maintain a consistent perspective and a linear framework somehow. That could be chronologically, it could be by theme. There are other options that connect everything together. So my memories of cookies have gotten me through some hard times. I really like cookies because they're soft, blah, blah, blah. And one of my earliest memories is of baking cookies and how much fun I had when I baked cookies. That would be my transition. I had so much fun baking cookies, I remember it very well. That's the transition. That's what goes between these two paragraphs. After that, I'm going to explain my memories of cookies. So maybe I remember coming back from school to freshly baked cookies, blah, blah, blah. And we're gonna have to transition into hard times. So maybe I would use that idea of going to school to say my school time was a dark time in my life. Or as I grew up, I learned that life wasn't all sugar and cookies, and I came upon dark times. And that would transition us into hard times. That transition element is the point I'm trying to make here, that there needs to be something connecting all three of those things. Ideally, these will all fit under a similar theme, such as cookies. But what is your cookie in your life when you're writing your personal narrative? It could be a lot of different things. For a lot of people, it might just be the location. It might be where you grew up. That's why one of our focuses is on community and like where you're from. Because that's something that is going to be roughly the same for most people throughout their life. But you might also theme things. If you look at the example I gave you guys on Blackboard, I themed mine after seasons. So I explained fall, winter, spring, summer, and that's how I themed my outline. You could also theme things chronologically. So if you're trying to explore all the reasons why you hated growing up where you did, you might say, as a kid, I even realized it was bad. But it wasn't until I got to middle school that I realized just how bad it was. And in high school, I did everything I could to get out of there. Chronologically, that's how that works. But you have that same theme for everything. So that's the challenge for this activity.